Today on Game Talk Live, PUBG takes Fortnite to court for a lawsuit battle royale. Let's dive in. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Andy Roman, and welcome to Game Talk Live, where we discuss the biggest video game news of the day, live with help from our chat audience. Joining me now are three expert guests to discuss these gaming topics and more. First up is Rod. Rod Breslau, known to most as Slasher, is an esports consultant and journalist with over 15 years of experience in the industry, most recently as senior founding writer of ESPN's esports section. Slasher is now the #1 esports consultant in the world. Hi, Rod.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Also joining us today is Nick DeRazio, a longtime esports fanatic who now works as managing editor for Inven Global. He specializes in emerging esports, classic video games, and competitive video game strategy. Hi, Nick.
Hello, Mandy. It's great to be here.
I feel like it's been a long time since we had you on the show, Nick.
Yeah, it's so nice. I feel like I'm in a very familiar territory again. It feels good.
It's great to have a bunch of familiar faces here today, including Ryan Morrison, deemed the video game attorney by the developers and esports players. He has helped for free through forums such as Reddit. Ryan Morrison has worked to ensure that legal protection is available for everyone in this industry, not just the rich. Hi, Ryan.
Hello, thank you for having me back.
All right, guys, let's hop to it. PUBG Corp is officially taking legal action against Fortnite publisher Epic Games. The company claims that their Battle Royale rival copied their intellectual property, but it seems very unlikely that these charges will actually hold up in court. So, is there an actual case here? Ryan, start us off.
Well, it's first off, it's filed in Korea, which makes it outside of my normal expertise. What I can tell you is two things. First, I don't think that under American copyright law, there's a huge case here. You cannot own a game genre. You cannot own game mechanics for the most part. And you cannot own kind of the idea of a game. So the shrinking blue wall is a game mechanic. That idea of a battle royale is a game genre. Those aren't really traditionally protectable. There are exceptions, but I don't see a ton here that would be exceptions. In Korea, on the other hand, where I'm not an expert on copyright law, I do know that the copyright law themselves are fairly similar, at least from my glossary overlook. What's not similar, though, is the punishments. So if Epic is found to be infringing in Korea, it's very different than infringing here. In Korea, the government themselves actually helps with enforcement. They'll ban people from being able to log on to Fortnite. They'll actually help go after the infringer. In America, on the other hand, enforcement is usually up to you. So if I win a judgment against you for infringing on my stuff, that's awesome. But I have to then go after you and make sure you pay and work with collectors and things like that. On the other hand, here in Korea, the government themselves does it. So it's a huge difference.
So if PUBG then sues Fortnite, should H1Z1 sue PUBG? Should then Arma sue H1? How far back can or should this go? Rod, what do you think?
I mean, it would be kind of ridiculous if we start seeing developers sue other developers based on their game mode, considering, 3 of the last major hits in esports have all been on 3 different game modes. You've had the MOBA and Dota genre spawn 3 different games of League of Legends, Dota, Heroes of the Storm. You've seen Overwatch, which takes a strong amount of liberty from the Team Fortress style of gameplay. And now you have Battle Royale with hits of H1Z1, PUBG, and now Fortnite. So there is no clear or good thing about any type of win here for Bluehole and PUBG Corp against Epic. I think it would set a terrible precedent in terms of the way that game developers and game designers have been innovating, especially in the esports space, where it's all about multiplayer competitive gaming. And there have been very few game modes that have proven to be viable game modes to move our industry forward. And there really only are a small amount of things that you can do in terms of creating game modes that are really popular. And it's been shown that it's really hard to create unique ideas that are played by millions and millions of people. So if there is any one developer or publisher to gain control over a certain game mode, it would be, I would think, a catastrophe for the entire industry.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, do you think it's just ridiculous to even entertain the thought of copywriting a genre? And what kind of precedent would this set?
Yeah, I think, well, it's interesting that you bring up the concept of precedent, because I think people in the West, when they think of someone suing you for a copyright, it's usually, when it comes to the game industry, the bigger game that's already a success is now suing the tinier games who are trying to, gain leeches off of that success by copying the formula. But I think this situation's the opposite. I mean, Fortnite went and took this a Battle Royale genre and they cleaned it up. They made it bright, they made it beautiful, they made it fun, and they, took away all of the huge concerns and technical issues with PUBG that even its most, adamant fans were conceding every single day, that the game was broken, that the game was technically, really ugly, and that the shots missed all the time. So I think it not only looks pretty bad to see PUBG, who everyone has known has been, losing the Battle Royale war against Fortnite, now to see this Hail Mary attempt, okay, well, we're just going to sue you. It's I do think it is a little absurd, and it doesn't seem like it has that initial, inkling of truth, or inkling of, oh yeah, that makes sense. It just doesn't. Fortnite is just doing the game better. So how can PUBG sue them for improving on literally everything about the genre?
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking to kind of improving, to play devil's advocate for a moment, I'm trying to look at it from PUBG's point of view. They create a title on the Unreal Engine that Epic is obviously privy to kind of the development and the inner workings of the title of PUBG, considering it's using their engine. So from what it sounds, PUBG is insinuating that Epic kind of took their concept and idea and then slapped some new paint on it, added this building mechanic, and voila, we got Fortnite Battle Royale. I mean, its core kind of situation, it means PUBG is having to battle it out with what was supposed to be their partner in this. I mean, Ryan, what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, and so to that point, we're talking about copywriting the genre. That's absolutely, just to be clear, even in Bluehole's defense, that's not what they're saying. Bluehole's not saying we own Battle Royale games. They're saying that, and maybe that's the intent, but what they're saying actually in this lawsuit is that you guys copied our user interface, you copied actual assets, you guys are cloning our game. It's not that you made a Battle Royale game. It's not that we're mad at H1Z1 and all these other ones. It's that you specifically are copying our game, and it is down to the actual assets. So in video games, copyright protects those assets. It protects the UI design. It protects everything that you look at the game and you say, okay, this is that game. What that lends to here is exactly what you said. This was supposed to be their partner. I would imagine there was a lot of NDA stuff back and forth. I would imagine that there was a lot of, hey, here's what we're planning for the game. Can you make your engine, make sure you can support this? PUBG was notorious and famous for having a lot of bugs and issues. Maybe they were working with Epic to solve that. And then all of a sudden around the side, Epic comes out with a game that improved on all those things, knowing what the issues were. I think, as kind of taking the lawyer hat off for a second and looking at the marketing PR side, I think Bluehole came out 6 months ago or whenever it was in September to kind of complain about Fortnite originally, and they expected the entire internet to say, holy hell, Epic is so evil. How can they work with these guys and steal their idea? And that's what I expected as well when PlayerUnknown came out and said that. But instead, we saw the internet completely go against PlayerUnknown and say, how dare you think you own this? So it was really interesting to watch. I don't think Brandon or PlayerUnknown has ever said, I own Battle Royale genre. I think he's saying, these guys specifically stole my stuff and we were supposed to be partners.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Here's an interesting question that I thought of when you were saying that, because I think you made a really good point and clarification about the assets that these game companies own. Now, one of the things that I heard is that a PUBG claims that the weapon sets are very, very similar, right? The type of guns and the style of guns that they use are just very similar. Now, if that's the case, couldn't you also argue that the type of guns or even the mechanics of these guns are part of the genre? Like, the genre needs a sniper gun, and the genre needs a semi-automatic, and the genre needs a shotgun, like things like that. Like, isn't that an argument that you could make where, well, yes, I know that the weapons are similar, but that's because the genre, the gameplay, the mechanic demands these weapons.
For sure, but I think that the thing to remember with that too is Bluehole did not draft this litigation. Their lawyer did. And if a client comes to me and says, hey, these guys are infringing because look at their house in their game. Their house in their game looks exactly like the house in our game. I then, with my team over here, would go look at both games and find 30 other things that might not be an exact clone, but I'm going to complain about anyway. You always want more in a lawsuit rather than less. And it's a lawyer's job to kind of do that overkill. Even though that looks bad to Reddit and Twitter and common sense, it's still what you would do. I know Bluehole even complained months ago in comparisons, look at these two doors, they look alike. And everyone said, what the hell? They're doors. But, you know, as a lawyer, you would do that. These are blue doors with a yellow knob and there's a tear in the side. You know, that lawyers are and keep in mind, we bill hourly. So the more we find and put in there, good for us.
So you're sending your minions out into PUBG and Fortnite to find similar assets.
If you're paying us to play video games and find commonalities, we'll do it.
So, I mean,
I learn something every time I ask Ryan a question.
I think we all do. I mean, I learned something with every one of these episodes. So, I mean, speaking to these assets, not just the guns, not the doors, but a lot of these assets have even come from the Unreal store. I mean, they have an asset store where you can buy 3D models for use in your titles, in addition to other websites where these types of resources exist. I mean, Rod, do you think PUBG is just kind of biting the hand that feeds them?
I mean, there's something to be said. I mean, me and Nick are journalists, and Ryan is a lawyer, so we kind of look at it all from a different perspective. Where we are, we think this is all complete nonsense. But in terms of the lawyer and how they are working at this, there may very well be a case, especially in Korea, where the laws are different and there are different things going on. But for someone like me, it's okay. They're not necessarily trying to copyright the genre that is Battle Royale, but the entire case so far just looks really petty from PUBG's perspective in the way that they are going about it. So yeah, in terms of a lawyer, nitpicking the doors and the weapon sets is probably the right way to go, but it's definitely not going to win over anyone on the internet, whether it is the player base or the pro teams in esports or the pro players or the journalists or the media. So they've pretty much created an enemy out of every single person except for maybe the most important people, which are the lawyers in this case. But I will say the unique part about all of this is that PUBG is using the Unreal Engine. And this is what Epic, before Fortnite came out, made the bulk of their money on, which is selling their engine. And the Unreal Engine has been the creative force behind this developer for a very long time. Yeah, they made Gears of War, and that was kind of like their major series for a long time. And it all came from the game that was Unreal, which is why this engine was named after it was. But this is very similar to back in the day when id Software made their engines. The original Counter-Strike 1.6 engine was built off of Quake 2, and it was built off of the id Software engine until they made Source to make their own engine. And if you're not willing to put in the time, and it's really difficult to make a video game engine, but this is what is going to happen. I mean, Valve made sure that they had an engine for their games. League of Legends, actually, I'm not actually sure what League of Legends is built off of. I think they actually built it off of like Flash or some crazy nonsense. But a lot of the games in esports right now, the developers took the time to make their own engine. Overwatch is a brand new engine that Blizzard took a very long time to curate and to create. So if Bluehole wanted to license out the Epic engine, you know, they were using someone else's technology to build an entire billion-dollar industry game that they had. It doesn't give Epic the right to steal things, and of course, which is what all of this lawsuit was about. But I can see all of these problems are stemming from this one issue.
Mm-hmm.
But now take all that and go explain it to a retirement home. And that's akin to explaining it to a judge. That's why this litigation is very possibly going to go in Bluehole's favor. as ridiculous as the case is to all of us here, we all agree that there is not copyright infringement here in any real way. The reality is explaining a video game to a judge, let alone a genre and what Battle Royale is, and that a shrinking blue wall exists, or what Twitch is, or any of this, isn't going to go well. They don't understand it. They can't work their own email. It's a real problem in law. As much as I joke about it all the time, it's a real issue. Most of our case law and most of our legislation comes from people who just do not get this stuff. And that's not going to change until we have a separate technology Supreme Court or some other magical solution. But for now, any litigation is fair game in video games because of that reality. And because of that reality, and it's so terrifying to be a lawyer on either side, I would bet my law firm this won't see a judgment. They're going to settle this way sooner than later.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick, please.
Well, there's also, and just a quick note, that there is also that blunder that Fortnite did when they were first releasing the trailer for this game and the whole announcement of this game, where they actually mentioned PUBG by name and said, "Oh yeah, I really love PUBG games, so we're going to make our own." So yeah, now that you've put it into a context that they eventually have to convince a judge, that would probably be a very compelling point that they look at. Look, when they first announced their game, they said they're going to make it just like our game. I could see how that becomes a more shut case for someone who's not, living this stuff every single day.
Sure. All right, guys, after the break, we'll take a look at Fortnite's big push into esports, including a $100 million prize pool and a celebrity E3 tournament. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name's Todd. We're going to be playing some H1Z1, and a lot of you out there are going to be able to win some prizes by guessing when our guests die. Sasha, are you ready to go play some H1Z1?
Let's do this.
I think we've seen this story before.
We got a lot of guests tonight from all over the world. They're competing for a trophy, our Champion of the Night prize. Which one of you is going to be the best player tonight?
Anybody that comes in my way is done.
Get a helmet, get a backpack, get a rifle.
Kill everyone.
Kill that person.
Engage.
Kill. Oh my God!
I give the people what they want to see.
Oh my God!
Oh wow, he took a big hit. He got it!
Can you throw me in the Norwegian server or someplace where they're just not gonna find me?
No.
Did I die first?
No one's died that early in the game ever.
Hear you make some noise. Has the favorable position, getting some shots in, but does it with the explosion on the car.
All right, welcome back, guys. Epic Games announced that they're hosting a Fortnite Celebrity Tournament at this year's E3 conference. The major Battle Royale titles are all pushing their focus into esports, but there are definitely some complications that come with the genre. So, how do we make Battle Royale esports work? How would you propose the competitive structure to be set up? And Rod, I'd like to start with you on this one.
Battle Royale in general has a long way to go to prove itself to be a competitive esport, considering how difficult it is to watch the entire genre. It's much easier to watch individual streamers on Twitch because you're following one perspective the whole time. But I think PUBG esports so far, even though it's gotten pretty far, has shown to be really difficult to follow along when you have 16 teams in one game, which is 64 POVs if they're playing squads. And that is going to transfer over to Fortnite in terms of the difficulty. I do think that Fortnite, from at least talking to all the pro players, seems to want to go a slightly different direction. Duos does seem to be the preferred option right now. And I would also agree that duos is much easier to follow because you only have 2 POVs instead of 4. And it also lends it easier to be able to follow a set of 2, which creates kind of an easier storyline for everyone to get behind. So in general, Battle Royale, still long way to go. And including Fortnite, because it is a younger game than PUBG, even PUBG has had more time to kind of work itself out and to try to balance the weapons and balance the game. Fortnite still doesn't have a competitive rank mode. There's no custom games that exist on American servers yet. There are weapons and building is kind of still OP in the game. So it has a long way to go in terms of the balance of the game and the spectator viewership and the game mode to making it a real esport for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah, Nick, what do you think is the best scenario for both players and for spectators in terms of Battle Royale esports?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked this question. I just recently wrote about it, so I feel like it's fresh in my mind.
Good.
I think one of the most important things that a brand new esport needs to do, both for the player and the viewer trying to watch, is you need to have a viewer experience mirror what it looks like to play the game as close as possible. Now, obviously, you're probably going to have some extra information from the observers or something like that, but I really think that the core magic of Fortnite are actually the duels and the mechanical one-on-one situations, those skirmishes. You know, this whole concept of building these structures to be used as shields and ladders and bridges, all these things, like that is some really, really high stakes action. And I think that if Fortnite esports can manage to capture that and show that and have their tournaments be about that, I actually think that sounds more interesting as a spectator that just wants to have what I'm watching mirror high-level a gameplay. I think that's more important than the, dare I say, a gimmick of having, you know, so many players into one thing and then it mirrors down to one. I mean, that's a very fun game mode for everyone, but that doesn't have to be the game mode. As Slasher said, that does not have to be the game mode for the esport. So I think that's the first thing they really need to do. Just try to have the gameplay and the viewing experience be as close as possible.
Sure. So kind of the first test we're going to see of this, it is at E3 at the Celebrity Pro-Am tournament that they're putting on. So, I mean, Ryan, what do you think how does an event like the Celebrity Pro-Am kind of affect Fortnite's future esports efforts? I mean, does it? I just think if the celebrities are tanking, does that make for a poor showing of the game or just like a poor spectator experience?
So this is actually an interesting point. As you guys were discussing kind of the future of Fortnite esports, I think Fortnite works best almost comparing it to wrestling, where I really like Cypher, I really like Ninja. I want to see them go at it with 98 other people around. Every game is the Royal Rumble. It could be that exciting. And bringing in some other random celebrities who will for sure die, great. I mean, who cares? Throw in everyone. Yeah, I want to see Ninja snipe Joel McHale across the map. Yeah, I want to see Cypher win it all, which he will. You know, it's really exciting to see, and I think as Fortnite came out as kind of the fun and comical version of PUBG, I think they're treating their tournaments that way, and that's the right way. They're coming out and saying, yeah, you know, PUBG had a nitty-gritty, best of the 100 kind of way to go. We're going to throw in some lunatics and idiots and see what happens. And I think it's the right way to do it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't imagine how many viewers it gets.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Well, I do really like that idea that, hey, let's first and foremost make sure this is fun, right? Let's first and foremost make sure this is interesting, because I do think maybe over the past year or so, esports, not that they've taken themselves too seriously, but I think sometimes people miss the appeal of esports. Like, I don't personally think the appeal of esports is very serious gamers in hoodies and big headsets and everyone glaring at the computer with their mad skills and having this sense of like elitism. Like, I just don't think that's actually the appeal and why esports have gotten to where they've gone. I think obviously high level gameplay is always a paramount, but we've gotten there because for the most part, playing at the highest level is the most fun. And watching people play at the highest level is the most fun. So yeah, if you're not having a good time, if it's not a joy to watch someone really good at the game, if it's not just delightful to see someone do really awesome moves, yeah, I think that your esport has a limited shelf life. And when he said that I could possibly watch a Ninja snipe a Joel McHale to see that reaction, yeah, that sounds fun. I would watch that.
Well, riding a shopping cart. Rod, this is kind of something you touched upon in your point. According to the official verbiage from Epic, quote, our approach will be different. We plan to be more inclusive and focused on the joy of playing and watching the game. So, I mean, can you kind of translate for us? What do you think that means in Epic's mind?
Nothing really. It doesn't really mean everything. Don't all game developers want everyone to enjoy watching the game and to be all inclusive of everyone?
Sure.
I mean, it just means that, they want a good community and they don't want assholes running around talking shit to each other, which I think has been a big proponent of like every major developer in competitive gaming and esports. So is there anything specific to that? No. Probably not. I think they're just going to have a long way to go in terms of making the actual game competitively viable. It's still very young. There's still a long way to go. The building mechanics are still the most important thing in the game, which could lead to really cool like one-on-one situations, as Nick was saying in the end game, or it could lead to really stale options in the early to mid game, depending on what happens. Teams are only really starting to scrim and to kind of play like semi-Fox tournaments right now, and there's going to be a lot that those guys are going to have to do to try to get the game ready to play. I will say I did get a message right now while we are live from someone who has been scrimming, who is very known in the esports industry, named Too Good, and he really does believe that it is going to be solos over duos as the main game mode. Now, I do think that watching like Ninja in Vegas was kind of indicative of how things could be. I don't really think we're going to follow one person throughout an entire tournament, and that really was more of a show match. But following one person in a solo environment could very well be the way that it'll be the easiest way to follow a tournament, because it definitely squads and teams are going to be really extremely hard, and I do not think that is at all going to be in the plans.
Yeah. All right, so we can't end this topic without talking about the $100 million prize pool that Epic has announced for this league. So to give some point of comparison for our viewers, the biggest prize pool that I've seen so far, and you guys can confirm, is Dota 2's International, which was $24 million last year for one tournament. So how many esports organizations do you think are already putting together their Fortnite rosters, and how much are prize pools a driving force behind these orgs putting their teams together? Nick, start us off.
Well, I look at a game like Heroes of the Storm that actually has a pretty, surprisingly high prize pool and a surprisingly high level of prize pool investment that Blizzard has put in for this game. Meanwhile, the esports scene is fledgling, and we actually just recently had a organization back out of just yesterday. So at the same time, like, the amount of money that Fortnite is putting into it is so massive and so large, it actually does dwarf everything. So you can't really ignore the fact that people are going to be drawn to this huge, absurd, and just ridiculous number. But I don't think it will necessarily ensure that people enjoy watching, because at the end of the day, all that big dollar amount does is get people to read the headline about the tournament. It won't necessarily get them to watch it. If it's boring, maybe they'll stay for the first day and then they say, oh, this is really lame. And it won't necessarily get them to take the esports players seriously, to, become fans of these players and then fans of the organization. So, yeah, it's hard to really tell whether or not this sum is going to actually create long-lasting Fortnite esports fans.
Yeah,
I mean,
Ryan,
we have the...
Ryan, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we have the law firm as one thing, but we also have a separate talent agency where we rep a lot of professional players. One thing this prize pool did immediately was make every single first-person shooter Battle Royale player who's a professional instantly become a Fortnite player. All our H1Z1 players retired and are now Fortnite players. All our PUBG pros retired and are now Fortnite players. And that's what they want. And vice versa, all the orgs now, or the legitimate orgs, are coming and looking, at least investigating at getting a Fortnite team. What is also happening is every 22-year-old with their dad's credit card or every 40-year-old scam artist in Europe is calling all our guys to trying to offer them $700 a month for a 4-year term. And all those complete just not good people are coming right back into esports when they see numbers like this. So to anyone watching who's a player, don't sign anything without a lawyer.
And on that pro advice, this has been a great discussion. I want to thank all of our viewers and our guests for being here. Tell us what you're currently working on and where people can find you on social media, and we'll start with Rod. Ooh. Wait, hold on, Rod. I don't know what just happened to your sound.
No, don't hold on. Please keep talking. I love this.
No.
I've been waiting for my whole life.
We're gonna check on your sound. Hold on, Rod. Nick, let's go to you. What are you currently working on?
That's
and where
gonna
can
be
people...
on the front of Reddit.
Oh boy, I love that. You know what? Honestly, I'm currently working on a backlog of RPGs and a backlog of games that I have been dying to play. But if we're really talking about work, I mean, there has been so many breaking, emerging esports. Honestly, this Fortnite thing and trying to understand this Fortnite story and trying to identify the Fortnite players and the Fortnite orgs, that's kind of a 24/7 job. So that's what I've been doing, and you can catch all of that stuff at invenglobal.com. We put out all sorts of great esports news, and I also recently wrote an article about how to choose between a Pokemon Let's Go a Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. It's definitely the most important article I've ever written in my entire career. So I really hope you guys check that out so you can choose the right one.
Let's be real. There's one answer for that, Nick, and it's Eevee. All right, Ryan, what are you currently working on?
I actually shut down the law firm and agency, and now I'm going to be a pro Fortnite player.
Great.
And you can follow me on twitch.tv video game attorney. But not really. I don't stream, but go on Twitter.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Can we go back to Rod? Yay, Rod. Oh, no, can't go back to Rod. You sound like a Muppet. Okay, I'm going to read Rod's outro. He's an esports consultant and journalist with over 15 years of experience in the industry. He is a senior founding writer of ESPN's esports section, and Slasher is the #1 esports consultant in the world. You can follow him on Twitter @Slasher. All right, thanks, guys, for watching, for commenting, and, of course, for sharing our show. I'm Andy Roman. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and watch Game Talk Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific. Have a great weekend, everybody.